into the Septuagint versus the Masoretic, the only ministry on the earth that is comparing the Septuagint and the Masoretic line by line, cover to cover, Genesis to Malachi. So this is an addendum to Deuteronomy 14, and I wanted to do this chapter justice because there's just so much in here regarding the unclean birds. So let's look at starting from verse 12, actually moving on to verse 15. The sea mew is essentially a seagull. They're very common, the common seagull. That's one of the birds that I included in the thumbnail of the previous video, Deuteronomy 14. And then moving on from that, I want to talk more about the diver. That's a big issue. Again, I presented in the previous video that they're loons. Essentially, they're loons known to migrate to the Mediterranean Sea specifically, but they are not commonly found in Middle Eastern countries. Yes, they eat amphibians and crustaceans, but that's not how you tell. That's not how you determine what is unclean and what is clean by what they eat or how they look. It's simply what is listed, whatever is named. So I'm going to look at the loon and why it might not be the loon after all. So the reason why I say this is because the European Anglophone name diver comes from the bird's habit of catching fish by swimming calmly along the surface and then abruptly plunging into the water. Now, the North American name loon likely comes from the Old English word lume, meaning lummox or awkward person, or the Scandinavian word lum, meaning lame or clumsy. Either case, the name refers to the loon's poor ability to walk on land. And then fast forwarding, the scientific name Gavia was the Latin term for the smew. So why is this important? The small sea duck is quite unrelated to loons. It happens to be another black and white seabird which swims and dives for fish. So that smew is a bird that I included in the thumbnail as well. It's in the bottom right of the previous video. It is not likely the ancient Romans had much knowledge of loons because they are limited to northern latitudes. I'm going to imply not only the Romans didn't know about loons, but most likely the Middle Eastern peoples, including the Israelites, did not even know what loons were. So how could they be listed as unclean? They were, it says here, these are limited to northern altitudes, loons. Since the end of the last glacial period, seem to have occurred only as rare winter migrants in the Mediterranean region. So that not that they probably didn't know what they were, but they were rarely seen. But the term Gavia was transferred from the ducks, and in this case, it could be the smew, more specifically, to the loons only in the 18th century. So for at least 1,700 years, 1,700 years and more, we knew divers to be ducks, not loons, and probably more specifically the smew. Earlier naturalists referred to the loons as mergus or colimbus. So again, the word diver, as it is associated with loons, might not even be the case at all. So I'm going to look at the smew in a little more depth. Actually, before I get to the smew, I want to look at the swan. The swan is identified as unclean in both King James Version, Masoretic text, and the Septuagint as well. And what I noticed about the swan, it has a duck bill. I noticed that its diet is usually entirely herbivorous, but they're still unclean. they may eat small amounts of aquatic animals, but for the large part, we can't base their diet. I think the point I'm trying to bring here is you cannot base the diet of an animal uh, on whether they're unclean or clean, except when it says, chewing the cud. That was one of the only specific uh, animals that was identified where they have to divide the hoof and chew the cud. In terms of birds, it doesn't say, whether they eat this or eat that. They are identified by their species, by their kind, or subspecies, I guess you could say. So again, the smew is a species of duck. It is the only living member of the genus Mergellus. And I'm going to look at the distribution. You can see it's all around Asia, parts of Europe, not so much the Middle East, which is interesting. The Black Sea, Baltic Sea, again, not really found too much in the Middle East. However, let's look at this on ebird.org. It does show that the smew has some distribution in the Middle East, and I believe it's Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken, the range map. So this is a file in the smew. I'm just going to maybe expand this a little bit better so you can see what it says. So we can see, if you zoom in, you can see it's distributed mostly in Europe, parts of Turkey, Lebanon, and Syria, and maybe even parts of Iraq, but not that it is incredibly common there. Discussion, and the big question, which is essentially the title of this video, is, are ducks unclean? Are ducks kosher? So a third possibility is, not only could this smew be this specific type of wild duck, but it could include all ducks in general, all across the board. So it is a huge possibility, and it could be a very cataclysmic difference. Since if you do a word study, if you look at the word duck, ducks were actually known as divers, once again, not just the smew, but ducks in general, as we previously discussed. This is from Wikipedia. The word duck comes from an Old English duce or deuce, or a diver, a derivative of the verb ducan, to duck, to bend down low as if to get under something or dive. Because of the way many species in the dabbling duck group feed by upending, compared with the Dutch duiken and German tauschen, to dive. They are found in the Middle East, unlike loons, and they too eat amphibians and crustaceans. I think we forget that. Ducks do eat that, but again, does not depend on what they eat. It depends on what is listed. And before I forget, the red bill, another possibility, a fourth possibility, is it could be the flamingo. The flamingos are known to migrate to various Middle Eastern countries. So let's look a little bit closer at a specific breed of duck, which is known in the Middle East. It says here, white-headed ducks fall into drastic decline. It says here, male white-headed ducks are unmistakable with the white head, large blue bill, and long stiff tail, often held cocked. And I'm just going to get into what countries they are found. It says that the white-headed duck it is confirmed this species is a resident in Spain, Algeria, Tunisia. A larger population breeds primarily in Russia and Kazakhstan, also in Turkey, Iran, which is anciently known as Persia, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Armenia, Mongolia, and its status in China is unclear. It appears to be rare over there. It occurs on passage in winter in the Eastern Mediterranean, the Middle East, I think that's the closer there, and Central and South Asia. So the SMU might indeed be this, could be this specific duck, or just ducks in general. So we can see its existence is being threatened in these areas, in Iran. And it has been confirmed from this article from the Tehran Times. This is confirmed to be a species of duck that is distributed in those areas, and those countries are, again, Middle Eastern countries, most of those. So I hope this video is helpful to you. This is controversial. I've eaten duck in the past, and I mean, just to be safe, it might be better just to go on a plant-based diet. But if you're going by the Septuagint and you're accepting that as the unequivocal word of Yah, of the Eternal, then you're going to have to consider this possibility. And just by having respect and having the Yirat of Yah, having the fear and respect of His Torah, this is His Torah, you have to make a decision. Are you going to keep this, or are you going to be cautious and not eat ducks, or are you going to eat it anyway, despite the possibility it could be ducks? Or maybe you just not eat the SMU. So there are many possibilities with the specific with this bird, unclean bird called the diver. Could the divers be ducks? That's what this video is all about. That's the focus of this video. Again, this word was omitted in the Masoretic text. That's a big omission when you think about it. Could it be loons? That's one possibility, but again, they're mostly distributed in North America and Europe. So we know this book is based in the Mediterranean, the Middle East. Another possibility is heron, but that was already mentioned, so that's redundant. So I'm going to scratch that out. But the third possibility, the third possibility is the SMU, a specific wild duck, a species of duck. And then the fourth possibility, it could be just ducks all across the board, because the SMU was didn't have a big distribution in the Middle East. It was rarely seen, but ducks, and more specifically the white-headed duck, was well known to be distributed and was well known to be found in the Middle East, unlike loons and unlike the SMU, which was kind of rare. So I would say the likelihood of it being a loon is probably 1%. If we're looking at the likelihood of it being the SMU, it's a greater percentage, but a duck, specifically the white-headed duck, it's looking like 80% chance of it being that. The white-headed duck, or maybe just ducks in general. Because a diver, again, if you look at the word study of this term diver, it is a derivative of the verb dukan, to duck. So the word duck comes from diver. So I've just shown you that here today. I've shown myself that, and it's not easy to take. I remember the taste of duck. It's one of the most delicious meats that I've ever had. But I felt the same way about shrimp at one point. That shrimp tasted really good to the body. You know, it has this taste to it, a distinct flavor. But I have to say no to my flesh and say, no, I have to obey the Torah. Yah is greater than my own impulses. So that's all I have for you for this video. It's an addendum to Deuteronomy 14. I hope this helps you. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comments regarding this. It's controversial. I understand it certainly is. And even in my mind, it's not something I fully accepted, but I'm open-minded to this possibility of it being the white-headed duck. And I'll have a picture of the white-headed duck as the thumbnail to this video. So Maranatha, Yah bless you, make way prosperous. Till next time, we'll look at Deuteronomy chapter 15.